Medvedev calls the US-European Union deal anti-Russian. Now, is Moscow now fully pivoting to China and North Korea as a survival strategy, maybe?
Thank you so much. Well, yeah, the answer is yes and no. It is true that Russia is increasingly dependent on its allies for survival, but none of that is news, and none of it is an issue of Europe, the United States, or anyone else simply looking to isolate Russia for its own sake. Had Russia decided to withdraw its forces from Ukraine, normal trade would resume instantaneously. The truth of the matter is, China has been supplying Russia not with basic necessities, but with weapons and components Russia needs to continue the war. And North Korea has become an increasingly significant partner in that respect, with reportedly as high as 40% of Russia's equipment and weaponry ammunition coming from North Korea at this point. For North Korea, of course, this is an opportunity to make an international entry after decades of political and economic isolation. So yes, Russia is becoming more dependent. It's a testament to its economic weakness and to the success of the economic pressure by Western countries. But at the same time, this is by no means to mean that Russia has no other options. It always has the more option of coming to the table and agreeing agreeing to a peace deal, agreeing to withdraw its forces, agreeing to stop attacking civilians. Russia has opted not to do any of those things.
Yes. Well, Ukraine is now actually producing 71% of its weapons. Yet Zelensky also thanked Trump for the Patriot missiles but refuses to cede territory. Is this strengthening Ukraine's hand or closing doors to negotiation?
I would say that negotiation is always on the table as long as Russia is acting in good faith, which it is not. Now, the Patriot missiles admittedly will not be coming to Ukraine until spring of next year. And that is a huge amount of time for Russia to do a lot of damage to civilians in Ukraine. Ukraine, however, is becoming more assertive, more successful, and using increasingly sophisticated methods to disrupt Russia's military offensive. So the question is also the balancing of how much humanitarian damage Russia wants to make versus its actual focus on achieving a military victory. And now it's very clear that Putin is stuck with few options. If he decides to withdraw from Ukraine, he is facing the appearance of defeat at home. If he continues the way he is doing, he will continue losing sooner or later as Ukraine is ramping up its domestic production.
Yes.
The biggest issue for him, of course, is how long he can keep up the war economy, which has given him some relief in terms of weapons production, but at the same time, is cannot go on indefinitely either. Now, if Trump really wanted to put pressure on Russia and get it to the table in the 10-day deadline that he promised, he would authorize the move of the Patriot missiles and other weapons to
Yes.
Ukraine immediately. But that's not what we're seeing. It's almost like Trump is contradicting himself and still looking for to give Putin a way out, even as he's trying to manage his own image and to look strong on the international stage before the NATO summit.
Mr. Us, we're glad we are reconnected again now. Cyber attacks have shut down Aeroflot and 900 Moscow pharmacies. Is this Ukraine's new asymmetric front, and can Russia retaliate in kind?
Honey, first of all, formally, it's even not Ukrainian, it's Belarus hackers who made those problems to Russian Aeroflot. And it's demonstration of that fact that society in Belarus is not glad of the fact that Russia interfered in Belarus internal questions. First of all, that Russia supports the current regime of Lukashenko, the president of, or self-proclaimed president, as we called him in Ukraine, the Belarusian leader. So that's why it was attacked from them. But from those group group of people. But of course, we understand that both in Ukraine and Belarus, we understand that we have the same problem. The name of this problem, Russia. And Russian people should understand that when your country starts a war, the people of this country will pay a price. So accountability of those people, I mean Russian people, it's not the military people, it's civilians, but they are responsible for the decision of their government. So if you're killing people in the neighboring country, like Russia doing Ukraine for more than 3 years, probably it means that it's not only your government does it, it's you doing that as a taxpayers of the country because your taxes goes to the killing of people. That's why this attack will be a normal thing as attack of some drones that are flying not far away from Russian airports that practically paralyzed the civil aviation in Russia. And you understand that Russia is the biggest, according to geography, country in the world. They need aviation because it's very hard to connect between different parts of this largest country in our world. Thank you, Hani.
Well, Mr. Rus, you did mention that Russia is targeting prison facilities and civilian homes. So is Ukraine facing a deliberate campaign of terror? How can it defend a stretched front with dwindling air defenses?
So, of course, Ukraine said that, first of all, Russia started this war. That's why Russia is responsible both for everything that happened in Ukraine and in Russia, too. Unfortunately, we have no enough options to defend our, first of all, regions situated not far away from the front line, like Zaporizhia or Kherson, because half of Zaporizhia and half of Kherson region is occupied by Russia. That's why it's very hard to organize defense there. But now we are working on that. We thank to Donald Trump for Patriot system, but we understand that now the current war demonstrates the increasing role of the drones, as I mentioned before about AI drones. So and this artificial intelligence in drones make them extremely dangerous. That's why we need the same artificial intelligence drones that can destroy drones with the same system. So I think that the war of drones, it's one of the moments that the war of Russia versus Ukraine demonstrated. The drones start to play the enormous role. It's much cheaper than rockets, but it caused enormous damage. So now we will see how actually both Russia and Ukraine will organize the using of drones in the next weeks of war, because we understand that this war are hardly over, at least in this year. What will be in the next year, we will see. Thank you, Hani.
Ms. Zuckerman, the European Union agreed to a $750 billion in U.S. energy purchases. Is this economic unity or a coerced deal that shifts Europe's energy burden without breaking Russia's backbone?
To some extent, it's quite advantageous to Europe in the sense that Europe was had already, independent of Trump, committed to moving away from Russian gas by 2027. And that was their own deadline that they had agreed to internally. Now, they were looking for options. And of course, some of the options were preferable to others. Price is certainly one of the factors. The American energy is not going to be cheap, but neither will anything coming from, say, Qatar. Russia would have been the cheapest option regardless. So once you take the cost of the table, U.S. has proven to be a reliable partner. It's given that some of this will not be implemented till Trump is already out of office. We may presume that that U.S.-European relations could stabilize by that point. And in the meantime, this actually brings EU and U.S. Closer on the same page. This is exactly the type of cooperation that helps the countries strengthen their economic relations. Now, of course, let's not forget that this deal was also linked to other parts of the deal that included the raising of tariffs on European goods to the United States, making them less affordable for American consumers. And so that of course is going to offset the advantages of that. But
Yes.
would I say that portion of the deal is cursed? I would not say that at all. I think this is the kind of deal that the countries would have been trying to negotiate regardless.
Mr. Us, one final question, real quick. Now, Trump demands peace in 10 days, yet refuses to cede territory. Does Kiev see this deadline as leverage or a dangerous shortcut that rewards aggression?
You know, honey, I think it's leverage on China, India to actually decrease the dependence on Russia. India says that, yes, we will not buying Russian oil. China say no. That's why quite possible that after the deal between European Union and United States, quite possible that the steps after those 12 days by Donald Trump on increasing tariffs on China will receive the main approach from Europe. So it will be not only a US approach, it will be Europe approach that will influence on the Russian partners not to pay money to Russia, and that can seriously damage its economy. Thank you, honey.